Excellent. Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to another I Honor Me chat. This is episode 20, and I am so excited to be with you all this evening. I apologize for the delay, had a little technical difficulties, but it's okay. We worked through it, and we are here, and we are ready to join you all tonight. Let me go ahead and introduce my special guest, and we're going to get on our topic tonight. So, my special guest happens to be my brother, who is older than me. I have two older brothers. You all got to see my oldest a couple months ago, and my brother Adam. He has been on before, but we are doing something special tonight. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about him. He is one of five. But he is a phenomenal person, and I'm so blessed to have him as my older brother. He is a husband and has been a husband of 19 years. They just celebrated their 19th anniversary. He is the father to seven beautiful children. My nieces and nephews are absolutely amazing. He's also the founder of Freedom Through Music, and he's also the creator director of Kill the Cool. In addition to that, that's just a couple of things, but he has extensive knowledge and involvement and experience in the behavioral health field. He's probably been dealing with behavioral health probably over 20 years at this point, in many different sectors, from working for somebody to owning his own coaching business and business helping people that struggle with addiction. So he has been really engulfed in a lot of things. And, I kind of felt this week about talking to him, but I'm like, earlier this week he messaged me that he wasn't feeling good. And I was like, then I'm not going to mention it. But the way God works and the way he works with, I Honor Me is so beautiful because he always makes a way. And so, I talked to him yesterday and he was like, hey, however you need me, sis. And I'm like, is that my open door? Yes, God, like you heard me. But I just wanted to pull on his knowledge and expertise because I definitely believe where we're going, which is talking about emotional intelligence tonight, is something really critical to the I Honor Me community. So before I go any further, help me welcome my brother Adam again. Welcome to this I Honor Me session, and I'm so thankful to have you here.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes.
Hi, I honor me community.
Yes.
Glad to-
I always say, and my niece just actually said before we went live, he's not a pastor, but he really is. And you don't have to be ordained, but he's very instrumental in many people's lives, his children, his family, but like I said, in his expertise in the behavioral health field. And so tonight we're going to talk about emotional intelligence. So we're going to kind of do some things. There's some little different dynamics because emotional intelligence is so broad and so many things to emotional intelligence. And so I want to start off with kind of talking about what it is, and then we're going to get into some questions and go from there. So, I wanted to give an explanation about how you can honor yourself through emotional intelligence. And it really involves recognizing, understanding, and respecting your own emotions, as well as using this awareness to make choices that align with your values and your well-being. And there's some specific things that I'm going to go into concerning how I honor me and emotional intelligence work hand in hand. But I love to, we're teachers, we get it from our mother. I just wanted to kind of give a definition of what emotional intelligence is. And emotional intelligence is the ability to understand and manage your own emotions as well as the emotions of others. It
yeah.
is a key skill of building strong relationships, achieving your goals, and living a balanced and fulfilled life. And so, let's just kind of start there, brother. What has been your experience with emotional intelligence, and then we'll get into what your experience is when you've seen people that lack emotional intelligence.
Yeah. Yeah. Emotional intelligence. It's so important. And I think it's now starting to gain some traction. But I would say that, when I used to teach on emotional intelligence and did therapy groups, the number one question I would ask people is what's more important in life? Is it IQ or EQ? And
Yes.
they looked at me and they were kind of shocked. They were just like, "What?" Like, of course IQ is. IQ's.
Yes.
That
Yes.
You need that to be successful. You need that to make money. You need that to, all of those things. But the truth of the
Yes.
matter, as we dove more into it, we saw, and they were able to see for themselves, not just take my word for it, but they were able to see how important it is to have emotional quotient or emotional intelligence. And
Yes.
so, my experience in it is, and I'll say this, that well, maybe I'll save that for when you ask me about people that lack.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, so I would say, I didn't know prior to me going through the training myself, I didn't know really all what encompassed this emotional intelligence. So I thought it was just, hey, can I manage my anger when I get mad? Can I express when I'm sad? All of those, just kind of surface kind of things. Because
Right.
as I got training and I learned like really what emotional intelligence is, I learned quickly that I had a lot of weaknesses when it came to that, and that's the reason why certain things I wasn't successful in life.
Okay.
Even like you had brought up with like relationships or whatever. It's like that's
Yeah.
that's a part of it, right? Because emotional intelligence is broken into four domains, and I'm sure we'll get into that. But it's self awareness, it's self management, and social emotional awareness, and then relationship management. So it's like these four dynamics that you have to
Yeah.
constantly grow at, and figure out where your weaknesses are and where your strengths are, and do the work.
Yeah, I think it's so important, like you mentioned, doing the work. And before, let me do this before I get too far ahead of myself. I forgot to mention, guys, make sure you have your drink, make sure you have your notes, because this is really good information. And if you have any questions, please put them in the comments, or send me a DM if you're uncomfortable putting in the comments, because we want this platform and this community to be a safe place, and a place where we can talk about stuff. And again, emotional intelligence, and the reason why we're having this conversation is because it's these things like emotional intelligence, and the other people I've had on to talk about specific areas, really is life changing and can help you navigate and maneuver through honoring yourself and in a life period.
Yeah.
um but oftentimes we get to a place where we feel like we don't need that, or that's not for me, or I'm good on that level. And I had Yolanda on for 2 episodes, and it was really beautiful, because during those episodes there were things that she was coming into the knowledge of, and things that she hadn't heard about. So never think that you're to a point where you can't learn, or you know everything, or that you can't, or you think your emotions are intact, or you can handle your emotions, or you don't deal with your emotions, or you deal with them too much. This is really, the course, and the course is about emotional intelligence. It's major, and it's, again, like with iHONOR Me, it's not. There's no age, race, sex, nothing identified with that. It's for everybody.
Yeah.
The And we'll get into that, but the more you take the time to manage your emotions, because they come,
Yeah.
right. And for me, what I've noticed is, kind of after, in my 30s, my emotions, the Lord also deals with me in my emotions, but my emotions have been more heightened than they ever were before. So that's why I think, and we don't always understand, and a lot of women that I've talked to, and a lot of people I've talked to, their emotions did switch, and they don't understand, nor do they know how to navigate through that. So
Yeah.
that's why understanding emotional intelligence is so important, to help you navigate through more heightened, intense emotional times. Because, and like I said, we can get to that, because that you can even feel other people's emotions and need to understand how to navigate that.
Yeah.
But
For
yes,
sure.
please take your notes. Please send, if you guys have any questions. But yeah, it's very important, again, guys. Like, don't get to a place where you're like, I'm good. No, just take it in, and do a self-assessment and self-reflection on, how things are going with your emotions. So then I'll go to this. What have you seen with people that have lacked emotional intelligence?
Well, I'm not gonna name any people, but I mean, when we look at the systems that be and the powers that be and the people that are in those positions, whether it be congressmen, whether it be politicians, people that we esteem, and then we see them have or make certain decisions or say certain things or whatever that's offensive. These are signs of someone that lacks emotional intelligence. Even though we're like, man, that person is super smart, but they don't have any emotional intelligence, right? And so
Yes.
they don't have, maybe even if it's, they don't have any empathy.
Yeah.
And so I always, I like to say that people practice more apathy than empathy. And that again is another thing that is like a sure sign of someone that needs some maturing in their emotional intelligence, because
Yeah.
apathy, is just, oh man, I feel bad for that person, hey, what's for dinner? Empathy is
Right.
like, let me put my, let me see how that person could feel if I was walking through that same thing, right? And it takes that time, and it takes that conscious level, because that's what emotional intelligence is about. It's like you being consciously aware, right? being
Yeah.
being
Yeah.
conscious and not living from the subconscious, that we all tend to live from the subconscious. So back to your question. So you say, how can I tell? Well, some people, it's as easy as you see that their talent, their gifts, their abilities have taken them to places that their character can't keep them. So you go
Oh,
right. So you go, okay, like, wow, this person is an amazing artist, but man, they are, a terrible person, or whatever. And we call it fall from grace or whatever it happens. And you see, or maybe this person moved up in the company and has amazing talents and insight and intelligence. But they're not able to stay in that position because their character lacks.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
character lacks
Yeah.
because of the lack of emotional intelligence.
Yes.
You
Yeah.
know, I've had some. I would say my amazing supervisors that I've had have had higher emotional intelligence, but the worst supervisors I've had and experienced have had a terrible level of emotional intelligence. But they have all the accolades behind them, right? As they sit there, and I've been that person too.
Yeah.
I've been
Yeah.
a hiring manager, supervisor, and I didn't handle things, appropriately, and I didn't stay in that position either. So
Right. 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 Yeah. No, and that's real, and I appreciate the transparency because again, um, we are not here on this earth knowing everything, right? We have to get to a place where, like I said before, we have to be able to learn. But I think what you said about the emotional intelligence, it's so uh interesting because when I first was talking to you about emotional intelligence earlier this year, um it stemmed from what I saw at work, and supervisors, like you said, lacking emotional intelligence.
yeah,
Whether that was them spiraling, whether that was how they responded to people, whether that was, and especially again in my field as a nurse, people not knowing how to navigate through their emotions. We deal with a lot of emotional things. And when you're in the field of helping people, whether that's behavioral health, medical, if you have some type of where you take on people's emotions too, and you're not emotionally intelligent, then you just become this person full of all these emotions, and you're just always on edge with emotions, and it plays out into your work life, into your personal life, into your relationships. And that's like what you said, people can't even stay in positions. And it's
yeah,
so funny because I always just look at them like, boy, you need some help.
yeah, yeah.
Like emotional intelligence is not, it should be a mandatory
Of course.
program
Yeah,
that
yeah,
especially managers and leaders should go through, because not only do you need to ground and learn about your emotions, but like EQ, you need to be able to help and understand others.
yeah,
When I've been in supervisory positions, I promise you, one of my positions as a supervisor, I felt like I was more of a life coach and therapist than I was a supervisor from what my job was. Because they knew as soon as they came in my office, doors closed, but I had to be able to navigate, and I understood if their emotional um, place is not intact, it's
Yeah.
going to play out and show out in their work. It's going to play out and show out in their job performance.
Yes.
So yeah, it's so important.
Yeah, and it will also show out in their, in their life. I mean, I also look at, people that think that they have higher emotional intelligence because, which I've been there too, because I mean, I'll ask you this question. I'll ask the community this question. How many times were you given opportunities that you didn't earn, that you didn't have the certification or degree for, but
Mm-hmm.
you still were given the shot, right? That right there specifically speaks to, you have some level of emotional intelligence. You're not all the way there, but you have some level of it because someone was willing to give you this opportunity. Why? Not because you had
Yes.
training, because you didn't have the training, right? And so I've been
Right.
in that
Right.
also, where it's like, but then you can stop. I mean, a lot of times you'll be like, oh man, like, look at, I got opportunities, and it's beyond, it's, actually, what you don't actually, I'll reverse that. You don't have opportunities, you have options. So there's this thing of like, part of emotional intelligence is knowing like what are options and what are opportunities. And
Mm.
sometimes we're like, oh man, I got all these options or whatever. But opportunities are different, because options are there, and they constantly come, but
Yeah.
opportunities are far and few between.
Yeah.
And part of the emotional intelligence is for you to know, like, is this an option for me, or is this an
Mhm.
opportunity?
Yes.
Is this going to
Right.
further
Because options,
this?
there's
Yeah,
lots of those generally,
yeah,
and a lot of people, is we're talking about options, get when we have too many options,
yeah.
don't know how to navigate and negotiate through that. I'm like
That's
that too.
me.
Don't give me too many
Yeah,
options. No, no,
exactly.
no.
Especially at Sonic.
Yeah, no, we're not doing that. Um, I do want to share this, that I had looked up about EQ and IQ. So again, EQ is emotional intelligence. IQ, yeah, has to do with you being intelligent and considered intelligent and brilliant. But it says intelligence, or a study was done at Yale University, and it showed that those with high EQ actually make far savvier decisions, largely because they are better able to recognize and manage their emotions, thus better able to think through problems logically. And further research also linked them to higher EQ, was equivalent to a higher income that they received.
Yeah, yeah. I believe it.
So tell me, yeah, what are your thoughts about um, the research about having a high EQ, and how it's able to help you recognize and make better decisions and manage your emotions through the decisions that you're making?
Yeah, there's and forgive me, but the university slips my mind right now. But there's this there was this research that was done, and maybe we'll ask the
Mhm.
community. Maybe somebody online right now would like to.
Is the research?
Yeah,
Yeah.
or maybe they want to chime in on this. But so what is the difference between the brain and the mind? Does anybody want to answer that?
Yeah, come on, community, talk to us tonight.
Like what is the difference between the brain and the mind, right? And that this is what the study was about, where, because we constantly have heard that we don't use all of our brain capacity, right?
Hmm.
Or we're like,
Yeah,
so
yeah, yeah.
why don't we use it? What's happening? And so they did this research, and I thought it was a very interesting research to kind of speak to
Okay.
what you're talking about. So the difference being, or at least in terms of this study that they did, that one was subconsciously led and one was consciously led.
Okay.
One dealt with irrational kind of thinking, and the other one dealt with rational thinking and thought process. And so they say that the mind is something that we oftentimes, the mind is what we normally use, and that's the reason why this study suggested, that's the reason why we don't use all of our brain, because we live our life from a subconscious level, and we respond, react, whatever, to what our previous life experiences have been.
Yes.
So if somebody's staring at me, then I can assume I know what's going to happen. If I'm walking down a dark alley and somebody's walking
Yes.
behind me, I can
Yes.
assume, yeah, I either got to run or fight or do whatever.
Yes.
When maybe it's just somebody that needs help, but that doesn't come to my mind because I'm on autopilot. I even ask a simpler question like, how many times have you, sister? Um, how many times have you driven home and you're like, how did I go? How did I get home?
Oh, absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
And this is
Yes.
the example of how we're on autopilot and how we live off the subconscious mind. How in the heck did I get
Yeah.
home? Like I was just leaving office
Mm-hmm.
this is
Now I'm
crazy.
home.
Yeah, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
home. And this is what this study suggested is like most people, or a lot of times we make life choices, decisions, our behaviors, like all of that is encompassed in this subconscious level. If this happened to
Yes.
me, all of a sudden, like I'm doing this and I'm not even really thinking about it, I'm just doing it because subconsciously this is what I've always have done. Or even people dealing in absolutes like, "Oh, this never happens for me," or "This is
Yeah.
always going to
Yeah.
happen," or um, if it's not one thing, it's another, right? It's like those are subconscious thoughts that we constantly are replaying over and over again. So it's not surprising when you share that data, because that, I believe, is that person is taking time to use their conscious level. And here I'll be honest with you, living from a conscious place is very weird.
Mm-hmm.
It's very weird. And I would
Mm-hmm.
challenge everybody that sees this to try to live from a conscious level. And what I mean by that is every question that is asked of you from somebody else, I want you to very simply just take 10 to 15 seconds before you answer it.
Okay.
And then when someone is talking to you, I want you not to be thinking of what your response is and just listen with
Listen.
no even response, right? No nodding your head or anything. I just active listening. Right. These are things that cause us and are start to help us with practicing conscious living, which then increases our emotional intelligence because now I'm conscious. So it's like if I know I try to do it and I probably look weird doing it, as I'm going through a store or whatever, I'm just kind of like looking, I'm just kind of like consciously trying to be aware of every single thing. And I probably look weird, like I
Yeah.
said, I probably look weird doing it. But even when people ask me, how's your day going? I take a moment. And I used to there was this guy at my job when I was working as a therapist. He would constantly, or he would go around, he would ask everybody, hey, how's your day going? And people, oh, good, good, good. Again, that's a subconscious response, right? You were like, good,
Right.
dang, like, and so it happened a couple of times. I did it just to make other people laugh. But the guy was like, hey man, how's your day going? I'm like, terrible. He's like, man, that's good, man. And he kept on going. I'm like, dude, you didn't hear what I just said.
Right.
I
Right.
said it's terrible, but I did it, for a response. So just even taking that moment and going like, no, like, are things really good? Are
Mm-hmm.
things really good? Could things be better?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't want to say today's good. Like I'm glad I'm alive. I'm grateful for things, but like no, it's not a good day. I only got 3 hours of sleep.
I think you said so much, and I've been just writing notes. So I don't even know where to start. But I'm gonna start backwards since you just ended it with the I'm not good. Um, because I want to say this because I think, and you can help speak to this. I think sometimes that's kind of a battle, especially with us being in the church setting, right?
Yeah.
And not just even the church setting, but even therapists and life coaches and whatever. They always tell you to speak positive, right?
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
and I agree with that. I agree with that. But I also feel like there's a thin line because if I can't say really how I'm feeling, then it's like they teach you, oh, speak positive, have a positive outlook. And so I think that's where sometimes people get stuck in saying I'm fine, I'm doing well, I'm this, because they're trying to change what they're feeling, but then they're not honoring what's going on and what they're feeling. So I think it's a very, very fine line of like what you're saying, sit in the moment. And it's funny that you said it, because last week we talked about it and we gave the title the I Honor Me Pause, of pausing before making decisions,
Yeah.
pausing before. And I love it. And now that you're saying pause before you respond, because again, we are so quick to respond, whether that's a text response, a head nod, like you said, in a conversation, whether that is email response or just physical response. And the thing is too, it like you were saying, we have verbal and nonverbal responses,
Yeah.
right? So whether that's shaking our head, whether that's saying it out of our mouth, I pause from all of it. I think we should do the I honor me pause and pause in the moment. But that's so big that we were talking about being present and living consciously, because oftentimes we are not living in the present. Oftentimes we're either living from our trauma, from our past, or we're living tomorrow, or what we feel is tomorrow. We're not focused in on what is going on now. So I love that you take the time to sit in the moment and say, no, like, what's going on around me? Okay, this person's over here running crazy. But take it all in, so
Yeah.
that way, like you said, you can start living from the present moment and not the past or the present or
Yeah.
the future.
Yeah. Yeah. No. And the beautiful thing about emotional intelligence, and you did touch on this, is that when you start to live from this place, and even the conscious level that we're talking about, just being conscious, what it does is it will decrease anxiety and depression, because
Yes.
because like what you just said, living in the present doesn't allow for you to worry about the
Mm-mm.
future, which causes anxiety, because anxiety is fear focused, or
Yep.
future fear, and then past trauma, like you said. Past stuff is depression. So when you live consciously in the moment, like you're not thinking of that, you're not thinking of either one of those things. And that's what that's what my wife and I, we loved about yoga, doing yoga, um, was just like in that hour, you can't think about anything. You can't think about dinner. You're just thinking about breathing and getting through those stretches and 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 and
Absolutely.
and everything else, right? So like, that's the thing, is like it's being conscious and being aware. And I think that's part of, like, that kind of came out of like even being in quarantine, right? When we were like cooped up in the house, and being able to go outside and like
Yeah. Yeah.
finally like hear, like, hear and appreciate the birds whistling, and just stuff like
Yes.
that. They're like, like, oh man, like things that you didn't, and now we're so far removed from that now. Everything's back to, but
Yeah.
yeah, just being able to, like, yeah, be in the moment and be conscious. Like I said, it feels weird. I will tell you that, but practice makes permanent, not perfect. So it's
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
a matter of practicing it.
I love that. I'm writing that down. Practice makes permanent. Because I don't like the word perfect. But you're
Mhm.
right, and I'm glad you mentioned yoga, because I had picked it up. I need to pick it back up earlier this year too, when again I Honor Me came to me, and I had told you about how I started doing yoga, and you're absolutely right. And then that's also when I was doing an emotional intelligence course, and they mentioned yoga. And the reason why they mentioned yoga, like you said, is because you have no choice but to ground yourself and be focused on, can I make this move?
Yeah,
Your mind is too focused on breathing and the move that it has no ability to go somewhere else. It can't,
sure, yeah,
right? Which again, doing that practice and doing yoga can help you start to understand and practice living from a conscious place. But yeah, I would recommend that to you guys, doing yoga.
yeah,
And I've also heard a lot of people talk about when they do yoga, because they're in that conscious and in the present state, it actually brings up emotions, because that's when you're kind of not in control really anymore, and you're allowing yourself to be in the moment, right?
yeah,
Because again, if we're in our past, then we can control stuff concerning our past, because it's our past, right? And I can control whether or not I want to think about that or deal with that, or
yeah,
and then in our future, we have no clue what that is. So then our brains just go a million miles per hour trying to figure that out, right? So when you're right here, you're able to ground and center where your emotions are able to um, kind of have the opportunity to have the forefront.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, so
Yeah.
yeah, I appreciate that you said that.
Yeah, and you know, and even at the end of yoga class, they say thank yourself. I don't do all the open the third eye stuff, but they tell you to thank yourself, and I had to sit in that moment going like, no, like it's okay for me to thank myself, right? Like, because I got through this, I did it. Like, yes,
Listen,
God, we can't do anything without God, but yeah, I think it's again like going back to the I honor me and going like, no, like no, thank you. And whether yoga is your thing or whether you find you're being able to be conscious and living in the moment with working out, or maybe swimming is your thing, or whatever it
mhm,
is. Like it's okay to thank yourself too, right? It might be weird, but like you have one body and you just did something for your health. You just did something for your mental health and also for your body. So it's okay to practice that too.
absolutely. I love that thank yourself. And again, I think with like you said, there if yoga's not your thing, find something, but make sure you find something that is kind of calming too. Because that's the thing that I like about yoga is, that there's lots of practices to it where it's calming and it just helps you just not have all so much of the outside noise. But thanking yourself, like that's another affirmation to honor yourself. Like, I've said it before, it is good to celebrate your successes, your wins, your accomplishments, big or small. It doesn't matter if it's, look, I'm exhausted and I got out of the bed and I honored myself by doing this mindfulness, or I honored myself by being present today, and even reflecting at the end of the day, thanking yourself for, hey, I did yoga today, or you know what, I caught myself being intentional about living in the present.
Yeah.
um and or do things that, if that means breaking yourself from social media, um because again, we can get caught up sometimes on looking at other people and thinking that they have the life, but I'm pretty sure they've got some things, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So just be thankful that that you're on a journey, or that you are putting yourself up for success, and that you're going to implement things into practice, to start being emotionally intelligent, and to navigate your journey, to honor yourself. So yes, saying thank you to yourself is major,
Yeah. Yeah.
absolutely major.
I mean, and I know that you had mentioned this a few sentences before, but you had talked about like just in the church sometimes how there's a stigma to that, right? Being open and being
Yes,
honest about and that's it's you're absolutely right. But when I look at the Bible and I read the scripture and I see how Jesus dealt with his feelings and his emotions, and then again remembering that God is the one that gave us these emotions and it's for us to
yes,
manage them. There's no control in this whole emotional intelligence thing. The key is management. Management,
yes,
management,
yes,
management, management. It's not, oh, I controlled my, this, or I control this. Like, no. How do I manage? And Jesus was a perfect example of how he managed in so many different situations, but he also was honest about how he felt, even specifically about going to the cross and stuff, or even when he was frustrated with his disciples, So I mean, he
yes,
definitely, he showed how to manage, and I love that the Bible
yes,
even says like, be angry but sin not, right? It's like
yeah,
be angry.
yes.
That there's nothing wrong with that. And
Have
that's
that
what I tell people like in my anger management classes, like what? It's okay to be angry. They'd be like, what? Oh my goodness! Like really? You're the first person to ever tell me that. I'm like, yeah, but what
yes,
you do, uh,
yes,
what you do, from being angry, that's the thing. But being angry is that it's an emotion. It's an emotion.
absolutely, absolutely. um your wife is on, and she answered for us that the brain is physical and the mind is mental.
Oh, there it is.
Yes.
There it is. I
and
promise you,
and I
I didn't text her.
She's watching. And I just wanted to mention, like you just mentioned about the anger, and I'm glad you went there because oftentimes, and I think I even made a post about this. Do we have a right to, based on the circumstances, probably react and respond a certain way? Sure, we do. Sure, you can have that right.
Yeah.
But does that mean that you should do it? No, because generally there's going to be consequences from that action. So be in the moment and be present and feel what you feel, and navigate through those emotions, but don't act on it in a way that it's going to impact you that you're not going to be able to manage. Right.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but I wanted, before I go to the four domains, um, I've had lots of women on for several weeks, because that's just what happens. But again, I honor me is for everybody.
Yes.
But I wanted you to. We kind of tipped on it last week, about men navigating through emotions. It kind of came up, but of course we're not men. But if you want to just tap in, and I appreciate your transparency and talking about your experiences with emotional intelligence, but um if you don't mind sharing, what was a light bulb for you, where you said, you know what, it is okay for me to, number one, look into what emotional intelligence is, but to start to make the changes as a man, to embrace my emotions and to navigate through them.
Yeah, I give a little background. As you know, like we father, but we grew up with a very strong grandfather who is,
Yes.
man, a man's man for sure, like they
Yes. Yes.
say. And so, um, yeah, so didn't see too much emotion from
Yes.
him, but I would say, my journey, was I think my journey was just more of like making mistakes, honestly,
Okay.
and um, watching my man-made kingdom start to crumble.
Mm.
And decisions that I was making. Of course, again, this is without emotional intelligence, and so decisions I was making that jeopardize financial, work, decisions I was
Yeah.
making regarding just family and choices and stuff like that.
Yes.
Because it's and what I would say is that selfish decisions and choices, right?
Hmm.
As men, it's like, well, I do this, like I deserve this time, or I deserve, whatever it is. And so that's what I love about this community. Side point, is that it's I honor me is not about being selfish, and so there's a difference between honoring yourself and being
Hmm.
selfish. The intent
Absolutely.
is totally different. The heart behind it is totally different. So I
Absolutely.
wanted to say that.
Absolutely.
So I would say, yeah, I would say that, like, for me, it was like my selfishness began to cause effects in my life, where I was just like, oh, I'm not okay with this what the outcome looks like it's gonna be
Right.
if I continue, if I continue down this path. Um, and so I reached out for, just for brotherhood. I've reached out for accountability, and I wanted to know more, but I also, I'll say, I'm blessed because I've been working in this field for so long. So it was easier for me, I guess, to probably move into that. um,
Yes.
but yeah, so I would say that, yeah, it was just a matter of going, this is what the outcome is going to be if things don't change. And so I was like, man, I need to grow. I need to learn more. And I think as men, because we lead so much, because we're uh, women rely on us to do certain things and to be consistent and be that rock and stuff like that, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I think with that, I think that's where we sometimes can get hard like a rock, and not be willing to be vulnerable. But I think the eye opener for me was when another man told me, there is a therapist told me that there is power in vulnerability. And that was the very first
Mm.
time, because up until that point I had always saw vulnerability as a weakness. So
Yeah.
once he said that, I was like, Man, okay, like, explain that. Like, how is there power in that vulnerability, especially when it comes to relationship? And so, yeah, just there's just so like when you're willing to be vulnerable, and really it's what he started to unpack was being able to go beyond the surface, right?
Yeah.
Because if we think about, most of our dealings in life are surface level, and we can even
Yes.
get like that, even with marriages and stuff like that, where we can get caught up in the mundane of life and just everything's just
Hmm.
surface, 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 and it's like, okay,
Yeah.
how do we go? Because we need to have a deeper conversation. We need to have, pillow talk. We need to have like just this time that's carved out, for vulnerability, vulnerability
Yes.
and being able to be vulnerable. So that was, that was my path, toward being vulnerable. And and I won't sit here and say that like I got this down 100%, because that's not, that just hasn't. It might be a man thing. Like that's just not something that just comes firsthand. It's something that I have to intentionally do, but I'm willing to do it. And I think that's the key for anything that you're trying to do and change. You have to be willing, and that's what I would always talk to people about. It's like you're only going to go as far as you're willing to go, or willing to apply these different skills and tools and things that you're even offering in your I Honor Me community. It's like, are you willing to take that? If not, then
Yeah.
you're going to stay the same. So it just comes down to willingness of what are you willing to do.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And I appreciate your transparency and vulnerability, because I think that definitely is going to help other viewers and other men, and even the women that are watching, to understand from a man's perspective. Because, again, oftentimes we hear about men. A lot of men's experiences growing up where they were not able to show their emotions, or they were told, you can't have emotions, or boys don't cry, toughen up. I see people hit their kids sometimes, like, stop doing that, you're a boy, toughen. And it's like, oh my gosh, you realize what you're doing? You're not allowing them, and then you're going to create this, and then they're going to have to go through therapy and coaching and counseling in order to understand that that was all normal, that's supposed to happen. And you just didn't help them cultivate and navigate through that. And that's where a lot of men have kind of found themselves. And so sometimes hearing stuff like emotional intelligence is very foreign to them, almost like therapy
Yeah.
is taboo and foreign to
Yeah.
some people. But emotional intelligence, and it's funny because I'm looking at the four domains of the emotional intelligence, and basically what you're talking about um, was the first, and one of the domains, which is self-awareness, right? And the
Yeah.
self-awareness is the ability to understand your own emotions,
Yeah.
which includes your strengths and weaknesses and how they affect your thoughts and behaviors. So it sounds like, the reason why you went on the journey of emotional intelligence and understanding it was because you came to a place of self-awareness. And
Absolutely.
again,
Yeah.
like,
And saw the weaknesses. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
And was willing to be vulnerable to say these are my weak areas, right?
yeah,
You know,
yeah,
and because we all have strengths and we all have weaknesses. And I think it's a man thing to not like want to highlight those or even talk about those. Let's just talk about my strengths.
absolutely.
What do I do well?
Yes,
You know?
yes, yes. Yeah, yeah. And that's always, side note, that's always the funny question when you're interviewed. What are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? You know,
Yeah, yeah,
but
yeah.
I think it's important. It's actually one of the I honor me affirmations we're going to do before we get off. That we honor our strengths and weaknesses, because I think if we, curse it or hate it or feel, then we can't work through them. So
Yeah,
we have to acknowledge what they are. We're going to have weaknesses. You're not perfect, right? But you
yeah.
have strengths, and then you can work on those weaknesses that are impactful for your life. So yeah, I think you got getting to that place of self awareness. And then again, I mean, what you've seen even from the perspective of doing therapy and helping people come to that acknowledgement. So if you want to just tap in real quick about kind of how you have helped people navigate through uh, the emotional intelligence, including the assessment, if you want to talk about that for a minute.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, uh because we are in a world that is ran by influencers, so to speak. Um, that is like that's kind of like where you have to start with kind of emotional intelligence, right? Is
Yeah.
who's your influence or what are you being influenced by?
Bye.
Um,
Yeah.
what's your what's your example, right? Because we all
Hmm.
have things that inspire us. We all have people that inspire us. We all have those things. But if we think about influence, it's they say the word influence comes from, and you being a nurse, it comes from the root word influenza, right? And so, what is influenza, nurse?
The virus.
Yeah, right. And so if we look at it from that standpoint, right, we're now aware of like how do we manage the influence, so to speak.
Yeah.
Right. And
Yeah.
so that's
Yeah.
that's where I would start with people. It's like, like what is the influence and how do we manage that influence? I'm not gonna just tell you, that you shouldn't, listen to this or you shouldn't follow this person, you shouldn't whatever. But you need to come to that awareness for one. It's not about me telling you what you need to do. And so I'm all about giving people the tools and allowing them to, to do it. So yeah, so I would say just kind of walking them through this process. I'd love to like go into the assessment and pull certain words because there's people that were very confident that they had emotional intelligence, and so I would pull some questions out and I would be like, okay, yeah. So you know what what
Yeah.
is this and where do you rank on this, and so they quickly saw holes in it. But then I think the other thing is to really to understand before we get into the assessment is that depending on uh, your life experiences, your life choices, and even your profession will normally you'll see why certain things are your strength, why certain
Mm.
things are your strength. So there's some people in those four domains where you'll see like social emotional awareness, where that's probably their highest social emotional awareness, but their
Hmm.
own self awareness or whatever else, they're more aware of others than they are of themselves. Why? What job do they do where they have to put others before themselves or whatever, right? Or what choices are they making, or are they, I was dealing with addicts at the time or whatever, so a lot of them have, they were going to the sketchy places and they were very deceitful and stuff, so they ranked high on that, but they didn't rank very high on relationship management. So they were wondering
Right.
like, why is my wife leaving me, or why is my husband leaving me, or why do they take the kids away, why do they make me come to treatment, or whatever it is. And it's like, it's like, man, like I thought the relationship was good, and it's like, no, let's look at those questions for relationship management, and then you can see, oh, wait a minute, I had social emotional awareness, I was aware of it, but I didn't have any management. So that's the second part, right? It's like you could be aware of something, but you better learn how to manage it, because
Absolutely.
that's where it is. And so a lot of people stop at just awareness. And so my job was just to bring them the awareness, but then also bring them to the place of some self discovery, of going like, okay, this is my self discovery, and then this is how I'm choosing to, or what I'm choosing to work on, so I can start to manage, what this looks like. So yeah, that's what I would say.
So, right before we got on, all of that was wonderful. But right before we got on, you had said a quote
Uh oh.
that I wanted to mention about the voice.
Oh yes, yes,
Because
yes.
it also has to do with this whole emotional intelligence and how people even navigate to try and figure it out. And I know you use it when you start to do the assessment and start to talk to people about emotional intelligence.
Yeah, so the quote was, whoever's voice you value determines your standard of success. So at the very beginning of this segment, we talked about what is more important in life success, EQ or IQ.
Hmm.
But then the other part to that is whoever's voice you value. And I don't know who
Mhm.
that is, but that's some place for everybody to explore. Like, whose voice am I
Yeah.
valuing? And it could be different in different seasons of your life. It could be,
Yeah.
as a kid, maybe your parents, was a voice that you valued. And now that you're, out of the home and you're doing your thing or whatever, maybe somebody else's voice you value. But whoever's voice you value will determine your standard of what success is.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
I was just going to say, I also think it's important to acknowledge and listen to your voice,
Yes.
because oftentimes those other voices can be louder than yours, and then that's when you can start to um and to me, your voice is encompassed of a lot of things, and God lets you use your inner voice and your feelings and your emotions to
Yeah.
help, and that's the fight or flight. That's why we respond in fight or flight situations, because we're using all those things that, our inner voice and what we hear. Hey, this is not a safe setting, or
Yeah. Yeah.
discernment is also goes in there. So I think it's also important to evaluate, and when you're doing the self-assessment, whose voice am I listening to? Is it, like you said, is it a parent? And even as an adult, is it a parent? Or am I listening to a former abuser's voice? Or am I listening to a former relationship's voice? Am I listening to, somebody that said I'd never amount to anything's voice? But where
Yeah.
is my voice also in this?
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Because I
Absolutely.
not to your voice also is not being conscious.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And that right. And that's so huge. And so the three things that I would have people practice is for them to be aware of the voices, values, and then success, right? And so it's like have those three things. Like, okay, what's the voices? What's the values? What's the success? Um,
Yeah.
and so yeah, and then that's where the work. Yeah, that's where the work begins. But yeah, being in that place of being conscious, but I think that goes back to what you said about like yoga, and the Bible talks about meditation, and
Absolutely.
being in that place of being quiet and just turning off the phone and just being in, so that way you
Yeah.
can hear your voice. Because we do
Absolutely.
we have so many voices, so many voices
Yes.
throughout the day. And so yeah, to be
Yes.
in your own to be in your own space, and to be conscious, of your own voice. Absolutely.
Yeah. And the mindfulness thing too, and meditating, like I said, I'm glad you mentioned it, because I think sometimes people think it's a little voodoo or a little wicked or something. And it's really not. The Bible talks about meditating all the time.
Yeah.
But really, like you said, again, when these recommendations with I Honor Me, it's not stuff that costs anything but your time and your intention and being consistent.
Yeah.
But yeah, and that's why I think, again, with yoga, because you're really quieting the voices outside of maybe hearing somebody telling you what moves to make, then that's why I think that emotional part comes in, because you're able to be more in tune and in line with what's going on, and you're able to sit there and hear, hey, I'm feeling this, or this is what's going on, and being present. So whether that's, again, doing yoga, or going into your room, or taking a bath, whatever it is, so you can have that quiet time to hear your voice, because like you had mentioned earlier in the segment, that sometimes we have all these options,
Yeah.
and so we can even get bogged down with all these options that's going on, and like you in social media, and just life period.
Yeah.
We can become so overwhelmed, so filled with pressure, dealing with other people's emotions. And I'm glad you've brought that up a couple times, because I think that's really huge. We hear all these voices, and then we're also trying to navigate people's emotions, while not navigating our own.
Yeah.
And then even not honoring yourself even in that, and understanding, hey, today is a day that I cannot manage somebody else's emotions.
Yeah.
And I mentioned this a few
Capacity.
live before, about taking a mental health day from work. And if you take a mental, it's your health. And if you take that day, then do something to where you can reset, recharge, and refuel yourself, so that you can navigate other people's emotions. Because again, emotional intelligence is for yourself, but also in how you manage other people's emotions.
Yeah. Yeah. Because being aware of how, and we'll see in this assessment, being aware of how your emotions affect others and how others' emotions affect you, right? And like you
Mhm.
said earlier, some people are more sensitive to that, right? And so if
Yes.
you're aware of that, then you can say, wait a minute, I don't own that emotion. That was just
Mhm.
I was just around I was just around that. And so that's why I'm feeling this way. This is not really what I'm feeling. This is just what I've put on, and so being able to.
That man, that's so good. I love that you say that because there have been times where I have felt other people's emotions and I thought it was mine because I could definitely pinpoint it to make it be mine,
Yeah,
right? But
yeah.
again, I work in a field where I feel other people's emotions and I can see other people's emotions. But also, again, the Lord deals with me in emotions, and I can feel other people that I don't work with. Like, and I sometimes I try and navigate through that, and I'm like, and I just start crying. I'm like, why am I crying? I was just fine a second ago, and why
Yeah.
am I having all these emotions? And I'm trying to navigate through those emotions. So I think that it's important to, like you said, do a pause, do an I honor me pause when these emotions and things are coming up. Sometimes you do need to evaluate and be aware of, if is this my emotion or
Hmm.
is this somebody else's emotion because I just saw this or I just watched this. Because let me tell y'all, side
Hmm.
note, that Kurt Franklin thing sent me on an emotional roller coaster that I was not expecting at all. But my emotions just came out, right? And it did something to me.
Yeah.
So that's the thing too, is what we see, what we hear, what again, as a nurse, me seeing people lose a loved one, and I'm there or being a part of
Yeah.
that, or somebody getting told of a diagnosis. We really have to take the time to assess and then also release it too, which we'll talk about that later. But
Yeah.
assess where these emotions are coming from, and is it my emotions, and how to navigate that.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I said, even like knowing the difference between like apathy and empathy, right? And
Yeah.
going like empathy is a part of social. I mean, empathy is a part of emotional intelligence. So if empathy is a part of social emotional or social or not social is a part of emotional intelligence, then this is normal what I'm feeling, right?
Yes.
When I see senseless
Absolutely.
violence on, come across my news feed, or there's bombing in, here or there, whatever, and so
Yeah.
my
Yeah.
heart goes out to that, right? But I mean, we don't even take enough time to sit in that moment. I think we have numbed ourselves from that, and so we're just like, oh man, that sucks for
Yeah.
what was going on in the other parts of the world, but I'm gonna go out and get the freshest kicks or whatever, and so it's like again, it's that bringing in that conscious level, and being able to being able to just sit in that. But I think most people, if I'm honest, don't want to sit in it because it doesn't feel comfortable. It's not, I'm an optimistic person, but I think sometimes I find it that I have to sit in whatever that unwanted feeling is and go, okay, like this is what it is, and then get up from there, right? And not, again, not rush it. And I think, we can either be raised in that environment of kind of rushing through those feelings, emotions, whether it's somebody that you lost, or whether it's, something that was that offended you greatly at work or whatever. And it's like, no, sit in that, and go, honor yourself by going through, what am I
Those.
feeling? What am I feeling? Why am
Yes.
I feeling it? Am I judging this, or am I including this person as a part of something that happened in my past, and they have nothing to
Hmm.
do with that, but it just seems similar, or something about it just seems similar, and so I'm holding them to that same fire, or is it something that really I'm offended by, right?
Yeah.
It's something that I need to have some open conversation about. But most of the time, it's the other one, and that's even something that they say, like in anger management classes that I've gone through. It's like, hey, take a minute, don't respond, you know, and
Mhm.
it's like, man, that minute feels like a day.
Yeah.
But honestly, at the end of it, I'm like, I don't even remember what I was mad about. A minute
The
just seems
emotion comes.
too long. Yeah, as a minute seems too long. It's like, no, I'm mad. I want to deal with this right now, and it's like, it's not even worth it, right? And that's the emotional intelligence, is giving your energy to the right thing, not the wrong thing,
Yeah.
right? Giving
Yeah.
my, I get to choose where. Um, I'll say this real quick. This is just a freebie there, but even in church, we talk so much about like peace, like, oh yeah, the peace of God, peace, 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 peace. We're going to pray for peace or whatever. I remember one day I was like, man, I'm so tired of hearing like I know what peace is, but like what really like what does Webster say it is? Like, like and I love the definition of what Webster dictionary said about peace, and it's a simple definition. It said peace is the disturbance. No, uh, what is it? The disturbance. Oh my goodness, no. Freedom from disturbances. Freedom from
Ah,
disturbances, and I like
okay.
that because then it gave me the power to choose what disturbs me.
Yes.
Then when I look at the scripture, I'm able to better understand why it's like, wait a minute, hold your peace. Dude, like no. We give up our peace to things that are just disturbances. Like,
Yes.
no, I'm not gonna let that disturb me. And Jesus did
Yeah.
us that, where it's like things came in his and he was like, I'm not gonna let that disturb me. But yeah, so I mean, it's just like, again, when you have this emotional intelligence and you become more aware, you're like, wait a minute, like, what is disturbing my peace?
Yes.
What am I allowing? Right? If I'm saying
Yes.
I'm the artist, I honor me,
Yes.
I'm trying to honor myself. What am I allowing to disturb my peace? Because I can
Yeah.
pray and pray, God, give me peace. And he's like, wait a minute, you're giving up your peace.
Yeah. I already gave it to you.
Freely. Yeah, I already gave it. I already gave it to you. I
Yeah.
already left it to you, Jesus. I already left it to you. But you give it up because you're allowing a disturbance, whatever that
Hmm.
is, an offense, whatever that is, to disturb your peace.
Yeah.
And this is why
Yeah.
emotional intelligence is so important.
It is. It is. It
Yeah,
is. And I think, like I've been saying for the last few weeks with Yolanda, that we got to give a name to things, right? And
yeah,
so, we have these emotions, we feel these emotions. I've talked to several people about, emotions changing and being heightened. So now we're giving it a name, emotional intelligence,
yeah,
right? That you have to do the work to navigate through the four domains and do what you need to do so you can understand emotional intelligence. And I trust, I'm telling you, once you start doing that and living through the journey of emotional intelligence and being conscious and present, um, for sure you're honoring yourself, but you are able to live a better life of peace. Like you said, like
yeah,
you don't, the disturbance, and you know how to navigate, because again, things are going to happen in
yeah,
lives. Um, there are things that are out of your control, but what I love about I Honor Me is it kind of helps us navigate things that are in our control.
yeah,
And what's in our control is learning and being very well aware of what emotional intelligence is
yeah,
and how to navigate that. Whether you're a man and you need to start that journey of being vulnerable and transparent, or understand that it is okay to go on the journey of emotional intelligence, do that to honor yourself through emotional intelligence.
yeah,
you know Take the
yeah,
time. And I wanted to mention, because we're getting up on our time, because these
yeah.
conversations just always end up being amazing. So I told him already before, because I just felt it before, that we might have to do part two. um
You did.
but what I wanted to say, we didn't really get to the assessment, and maybe next time we'll get to the assessment. But I just wanted to say that the assessment is something that you should do more than once. You should do it, if you decide to do an emotional intelligence course, or navigate through emotional intelligence. I think you should do it in the beginning, and then even at the end, to see where you have grown with your emotional intelligence. But I also, like you had mentioned earlier, through different seasons, I think you should do the emotional intelligence assessment to see where it has changed for you. Because doing this assessment, they're simple questions, but they help you to understand, hey, I'm starting to become weak in my emotional awareness. I'm starting to become weak in my social awareness concerning emotional intelligence. So
Yeah.
yeah, I think it's important to do it at different times, different seasons.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, because it's not something that, you're trying to get a passing grade on. This is something that
Mm-mm.
you're wanting to see where you are, and then taking bite sizes out of it going like, okay, this is what I want to work on because this is
Yeah.
what needs most attention right now. Um,
Yes.
you know, don't overwhelm yourself with all four of these domains. It's not, it's not worth it, and you're not gonna get what you're trying to put into it. You're not gonna get out of it. So it's better just to focus on like one, like, man, I want to, really want to be in tune to this because
Yeah.
I need that right now. I'll see the most benefits in that.
Yeah, it's not a race, and just like with I Honor Me, it's a journey. Same thing with emotional intelligence. It's a journey. Don't take off more than you can chew. But before I leave, before we leave and end the live, I wanted to give you the opportunity to provide the community with 3 skills that
Oh,
they can do concerning emotional intelligence. You kind of said some stuff earlier,
yeah.
but if you want to reiterate 3 skills that they can do concerning emotional intelligence.
Oh, geez. I don't even know what I said earlier.
You
um,
were talking about the voices, the values, and success. Being mindful of that, and
yeah, I think what I would say is, let's see. Maybe I'll change it into like, um, hmm. I was trying to think if I was going to change it into like questions back at you.
yeah,
um, I would say who has the voice of influence in your life.
yeah, that's
Um,
good.
uh, do you know more than what you apply to life and why?
Yeah, that's good.
And uh, yeah, maybe I'll just leave it at maybe I'll just leave it at maybe I'll just leave it at that. And I think
That,
just yeah. Maybe I'll just leave it at that. I think
yeah, because
that's
I like those questions because I always have the community is left with something, but I like the questions because it does give you an opportunity to do some self reflection and
yeah
to really sit with and these questions. Like, really, I do need to understand this so I can go on this journey of emotional intelligence. So no, I love it. I love these
Yeah,
questions.
yeah, because if
Um,
not, then you could be acting a fool and not know why you're acting a fool because your friend group is has your has the is the voices that you value,
yeah,
and it's like, oh well, then that's something that you can change and you can but yeah, so I think it's better
yeah,
for me to do that
perfect.
and have people do the work than give them
Do the
yeah
work. Do the
yeah
work.
do the
That
work, do the
that's
work.
how we grow.
Yeah,
That's how we are able to have progress
yeah.
in our life.
Because
So um,
actually, I'll leave with I'll stop with this quote. It's not what you know, but it's the application of what you know that growth happens,
yeah,
and that's the reason why I wanted to choose questions over giving what you like. Oh, now I know. Now I know. Emotional intelligence. Now I know. Well, no, it's not about what you know. It like, can you apply what you know? You
yes,
apply what you know, because that's the disconnect. And even as men,
yes,
there's a lot of things that we know. Yeah, but can you
yeah,
apply what you know?
yeah,
Can you live out what you know? Yeah,
yes.
that's it. But anyways, go ahead.
That's no, that's amazing. So again, thank you so much, brother, for joining and giving your expertise, for being vulnerable, for giving your perspective as a man, as a therapist, as somebody that has been in the mental health field for over 20 years. I think is so imperative in what we've seen career wise, what we've seen in church, what we've seen home life, personal relationships. So again, if you're watching the replay, this has been absolutely amazing. We will see about coming back another time to do the assessment, because I think the assessment and diving more into the 4 domains is major and will help you on your journey with emotional intelligence. But again, thank you, brother, for taking this time away from your family to do this, because I think it's going to help so many people. But of course, Community, before we leave, we always do our I honor me affirmations. So I'm going to say the affirmations, brother, and then I will have you repeat them after me. So I honor my body, mind, and spirit.
I honor my body, mind, and spirit.
I honor my strengths and weaknesses.
I honor my strengths and weaknesses.
I honor my past, present, and future.
I honor my past, present, and future.
I honor my journey and my destination.
I honor my journey and my destination.
I honor me.
I honor me. Yeah.
Yes. So thank
Thank
you again, community. Thank you, brother. This was amazing. If you guys want more information about emotional intelligence, send me a message. We can get you connected with that because it's important. I think you'll see and be able to live from a better place. So again, thank you, brother. I appreciate you. I love you, community. I love you, brother. And we will be back
you. Thank
next
you. I
week with
honor
another.
me.
Yes. All right. You guys take care. Love you guys.